Hi friends, I'd like to talk to you today about the idea of perfectionism when we are trying to share our work, our lettering, our drawings, whatever it is that catches your fancy in this community, who we know that if we share our work, we have to become vulnerable and brave, showing the work that we are doing in the moment that may seem really imperfect to us, especially when you're striving to produce something that you've worked hard on or that you're learning. It's hard to do. And I want to share, I've got a poem to read to you about the powers of creativity and all the angels around us, all of your ancestors, all the goodwill and the good thoughts of people who are sending those thoughts out that are things. That all art is perfect, that everything is perfect. And I know it sounds crazy, but what is perfect is authenticity. And authenticity is the bravery that you have in the moment to create what it is you are creating. It is this gift that you give to yourself, this moment in time, in spite of all of the things that are happening to you, around you, and within you, and right next to you, that make your life difficult. And there are difficulties everywhere. If we can push those aside for a moment and unite with whatever drawing or writing or painting instrument that's in our hand and the paper, and unleash, pour out a phrase that is authentic in the moment, and then share it. I mean, that's a gift. I have here a photograph of a piece of writing that my dad did recently. He died in the summer, and he died of Alzheimer's. And this was his writing towards the end of his life. And it's the most beautiful calligraphy that I have ever seen. And it will be my favorite until the day I die. And he says, "I am in love with Nancy more every day, Tom." And you can see his struggle. You can see the corrections. You can see the shakiness and the imperfections of his writing. But you can also see his bravery, his character. His handwriting is still there. He's just different. And he captured a moment in time that will never happen again. And it was this moment that I cherish. I have to get this framed. But it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It is real and it is authentic. And this is the way that we should look at our own work. You could tell he was working. He was kind of going against the tide, trying to say something. And we should be able to have the grace that I'm feeling when I'm looking at this is how I should look at my own work, and how I should look at your work, and how you should look. I'm going to say should look at your own work. So you can say, I'm working on my Spencerian, I'm working on my copperplate, I'm working on my flora, I'm working on my cursive, I'm working on this, I'm working on that. And this is where I am. And be authentic and brave in spite of you wanting to judge yourself. I am in love with Nancy more every day. And this was when he was dying and knew he was dying. And he said this to his wife, his caretaker, my mother, who knew he was dying. And it's just amazing. This right here. My mother said the same thing, that she fell more deeply in love with my dad as she was taking care of him. And he, her. So just think of the creative effort it took to write that to think it, to write it, to express it, and then for those two to see his decline and his ending as it really is a creative process. It's a birth. You know how traumatic and messy a birth is? Well, so is a death. It's the same thing. Death is a birth into a different stage. So in many ways, I feel closer to my father now than I did when he was alive. I feel close to him when I'm feeding the birds and doing things that he and I used to do together, or the things that I just admired about him. So I have a poem for you by Hafiz called In a Handful of God, and he talks about creativity here. So I want you to listen. Let me start this over. We're listening to Rachmaninoff. In a handful of God. Poetry reveals that there is no empty space. When your truth forsakes its shyness, when your fears surrender to your strengths, you will begin to experience that all existence is a teeming sea of infinite light. In a handful of ocean water, you could not count all the finely tuned musicians who are acting stoned for very intelligent and sane reasons, and of course are becoming extremely sweet and wild. In a handful of the sky and earth, in a handful of God, we cannot count all the ecstatic lovers who are dancing there behind the mysterious veil. True art reveals there is no void or darkness. There is no loneliness to the clear-eyed mystic in this luminous, brimming, playful world. So the next time you go to take a chance and be brave, remember this. When your truth forsakes its shyness, when your fears surrender to your strengths, you will begin to experience that all existence is a teeming sea of infinite life. If that were behind your creative effort and your sharing of that creative effort and your viewing of others' creative efforts, there would be no judgment. There would just be joy of the fact that we're doing what we're doing. There'd be no jealousy, no envy, no shame, no nothing but being in existence and one in that teeming sea of infinite life, which you and I are a part of. It's there because we're part of it. Have a beautiful day.